the proverbial Oprah
Yeah.
thing. They want to be on some show that it's very unlikely they're going to get on that show. And I'm like, well, have you at the very least looked locally? Have you shared this with your family and friends? Have you asked, the bookseller that you buy your books from if they'll do it? Like, just simple. And they're like, well, that seems like cheating.
Cheating.
How is that cheating?
That's the whole job.
I mean, going on Oprah is cheating, let's be honest.
It is definitely like winning the lottery, I think.
And it's like an opportunity most people don't have.
Yeah.
It's not cheating to ask the people who know you to buy your book, or to let them know you have a book out.
And it's not self-promotion. It's promotion of the book and the ideas that are in it, and the interest of the people who want to read it.
And so it's like, it's just not like comparable or relatable when like everybody has people that are interested in what they're doing, in addition to family and friends.
Hi, I'm Joe Beal, the founder and CEO of Microcosm Publishing. I'm also the author of A People's Guide to Publishing, which distills what I've learned from selling millions of books over the past 28 years.
I'm Ellie Blue, the vice president of Microcosm. We started this podcast to share what we've learned with newer publishers, so you can learn from our mistakes. Or maybe you just want to learn about the publishing industry.
This week, we welcome back special guest of the pod, Jane Friedman of the Hot Sheet, who is going to address yet another inaccurate rumor circulating about our industry, which is this strange permeating myth that author marketing has no impact, and publisher marketing basically is what determines the success or failure of a book.
I mean, my guess is that at least part of it is maybe related to another podcast, which I don't listen to, so this is all hearsay. But there's a podcast called Publishing Rodeo, where two authors, I want to say they're science fiction fantasy authors. Maybe, I'm not sure if I don't think they're with the same publisher.
They are.
They are, okay. And so I think they had very different experiences. I don't know if their show is promoting this idea, but the listeners are definitely getting on social media and in reference to the show or inspired by the show saying, yeah, it's really up to the publisher to move the needle. I have no agency. I can't do anything. So, and to me, it really hurts my heart and my business acumen for an author to just kind of throw up their hands, cede all agency, and say, I'm just going to sit here and wait for the universe to act on my behalf so that I can succeed. Like, what? Like, in what? Can you imagine, like, telling a family member, a child, a best friend, if they had this attitude, it doesn't really matter what I do, so I'm going to do nothing. Like, really, is that really what we want to encourage? Now, I do have so much sympathy for authors who get insanely mixed messages about how to market and promote a book. The tools are always changing. You'll hear publicists say publicity doesn't work, which is both true and false at the same time. And, and then there's the whole social media piece of this that can drive you mad. Whether you're trying to use it to sell books or you're listening to people telling you how to sell books, it's challenging. And so, but the one thing I'm not even sure how to tackle is, how do I now convince people that actually how you behave in the marketing of your book matters? So yeah. I want to pass things over to you, because I know you have thoughts about this.
Well, I am the marketing director at Microcosm, and I'm the author liaison, so I have conversations about this every day. And honestly, like, they do have a point. Like, I do think that, like, there's a role for the author and a role for the publisher, and what the publisher does. Like, if the publisher doesn't do the things, then the book will tank. Whereas if the author doesn't do the things, the book still has whatever chance the publisher is giving it. So, in a way, yes, but in a way, an engaged and involved author can really support their book. I think there's a lot of confusion about what marketing means, and maybe that's part of it. Because I think going on, like, there's a lot of paid marketing opportunities out there. You can submit to awards, you can purchase publicity, efforts on your behalf. You can, respond to any of the dozens of emails in your inbox or the phone calls you get offering to help market your book for a fee. And a lot of those things won't move the needle for you. You can, get written up in legacy media and it might not even move the needle. Whereas things like developing the book correctly to fit understanding the market, I think honestly is the core thing, that if both the author and the publisher do it, understanding what the market is, what they need and how to reach it, then that is what goes smoothly. And having an author who does nothing is much better than having an author who is not cooperating or actively obstructing those efforts. So I would say doing nothing would be preferable. Yeah.
So I have to ask, how are your authors obstructing?
I mean, it's never ill-intended ever, but one of the kind of common things we run into is an author who really puts their foot down about the title or the cover needing to be a certain way, and it's a way that we can't sell it. Okay.
So I think that's really important point that you're making, that authors don't often appreciate. Like the book is this, it has this foundation that will determine whether or not any marketing actually works.
Exactly.
So like the cover, the title and subtitle, how all of that aligns with the aesthetic of the cover and the book description, and if it fits what the reader thinks they need or the sort of book that they will actually enjoy or buy. The pricing and format, I think, also can play into this in a strong way. And so, if you get that packaging wrong, it makes it very hard to sell copies.
Yeah, and we did have only one author that I can think of. There's probably more who actively was going out and kind of in the guise of promoting the book, which they were actively talking about the book on all their social media, on their blog, and they were talking about it in the framework of, almost tearing it down while they I don't know what was going on there psychologically, but they were just you probably shouldn't support capitalism, or you probably shouldn't buy things, and you probably, it was all don't buy my book was their whole message.
We did have an author on tour, and this is a real story, who every night in the presentation said, "I'm not saying buy my book," and then proceeded to give away all the content in the book, and then was shocked at the end of the tour when we had only sold 6 books.
Yeah, so there you go. That is there's active sabotage, which they may or may not realize they're doing. There's there's working against the understanding of the market. And a lot of times the author really is writing the book not for the readers. They really are writing the book to impress their mom. I talked to an author who was wonderfully self-aware and was not dying on this hill at all, but they were when I first designed this book, it was to impress my design professor and get a good grade. And so I think if an author is having those sort of motivations that they haven't examined, that can really harm the marketing of the book. I feel we're straying a little bit from the actual question, but I do also think that if an author is kind of a rule follower, if they're a good girl, that a lot of us were raised to be, then they can think oh, if I just do all these things and do this formula, then it will sell a ton of books, and it doesn't. Whereas if you are out there actively, if you are a member of the community of readers, if you're out there actively and authentically engaging with them, that is the best marketing that you can get.
Yeah, that's a great point. Right. And and it needs to translate. Again, I mean, and Ellie's right. It's if the marketing is correctly baked into the book from the get, it's almost we just have to make it available and do the very basic aspects of our job. And we've had plenty of authors that we don't hear from the minute that the book comes out, and do nothing until they're when do I get paid? And there's more shockingly, probably, there's plenty of those authors where we sell the crap out of their book, even with them doing literally nothing. And there's plenty of authors where, it doesn't and they will be very active and very engaged, but they're doing all the wrong things. So whenever somebody is paying to be submitted for an award, or in trying to involve themselves in things that like we know won't help them, we try to steer them away from that. But like, again, I guess maybe it's the opposite of the good girl. Plenty of people just will not listen.
I'm questioning my gendered language there, but I also feel like it is kind of a cultural trope that maybe many of us really do. Yeah.
I mean, I think I'm probably more on the side of, I think the authors have to try something. Not that I want them to obstruct.
No.
But I was certainly, when I worked at F&W Media, the marketing for the book, I won't say it was really, there wasn't really a publicity department, and very little publicity effort was made. But there was serious marketing done because this company had book clubs, magazines, online education, email newsletters. And so if you did have a book come out from this company, there were millions of people that they could reach directly, even if they never spent a dime outside of the company's own properties. And so in that sort of case, yeah, there's really nothing the author necessarily would be able to do that would match that strength. But I think the situation becomes very different when you, especially, I think it can be really difficult for fiction in particular. You know, yes, you want the publisher's support, and there are certain things that they need to do to stoke interest among booksellers and librarians. And I don't think authors have there's not a whole lot they can do unless they have been really pounding the pavement for years in the bookseller librarian community. And it's not something I advise, but you know, I've seen some do it. But I'll use one example of an author who I think shows what's possible. So there's a children's middle grade author, and I'm not going to remember his name, but I can at least say that maybe the title, The Last Dragon on Mars.
Oh, I've heard of that.
So it's a unique title, which is why I remember it. So he used to be a school teacher, and now he writes full time. This isn't his first book, and he's had other successful books, but he stumbled on something that worked for the book prior to the one that just released. He realized that if he did school visits and had a minimum order requirement, this really, really worked. And he's a school teacher. He already knows what they need out of a school visit. He understands how to present a compelling case to the schools to bring him in to buy the books or to have a speaking fee, whatever the agreement is. And so for this Dragon book that has just come out, it was October 1, the release date. You know, starting back in the winter, he planned his school visits, and he would only go to a school or go to a city, pay for his costs to go to another city if he had at least 3 school visits in a day. And then he raised the minimum order of books for him to come. It's a bestseller now. And I think it didn't require social media presence. You know, obviously it required a lot of legwork to set up, but I think the rewards are really significant. And I don't think the publisher could have done that for him.
Oh, that's so smart. I love that. I feel like that's such a great illustration of it's less about how much energy you put in and more about like where you put your energy.
Absolutely.
Like we've had people literally start social media accounts for their books, start blogs and populate them for their books. None of that really helps. Yeah. You can spend a lot of time and effort and really feel like you're doing something. Whereas, yeah, like if you understand your market and how to get the books to them, then you'll know exactly what to do.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, so I have a friend who has a press, and and the other day she was like, the author is like promoting their book, and we sold 60 copies direct consumer mail order because the author was saying to go to our website and order the book. And then she was like, but I bet you do way more than that every week. And I was like, I would be in love and shocked if an author sold 60 copies on our website during the week of release, because that just like does not happen. And that's but like that's such a baseline, like lowest minimum threshold of like what an author can do is just to go and pound the pavement and be like, my book came out, buy my book, here is the link to buy it. And instead they're kind of more like lost in the weeds usually.
Yeah.
Well, I think that it can be really easy to think that like it has to be more complicated than it is,
right,
to market your book.
Right.
Like honestly, like doing the basic things is what helps the most, like telling your friends and family about it and telling them where to buy it, and like communicating with your publisher. And that's something where I think a lot of publishers sort of fall down because we have so much going on and so many books going on. It's can be hard for us to kind of get it together to be like, okay, every author gets a link to their book and encouragement to use it and share it. And how about an image to share with it, and like promotional best practices and a coupon code and all of those things. Like, I mean, so yeah, if your publisher isn't giving you all of those, like ask them what they can do. And then the other thing that like authors can do is like, if you have an event, if you do get a media placement, if you like are at the mall and a reporter interviews you and features you in a story, like talk about your book and tell your publisher right away.
Right.
So they can help get it into stores. And then, another thing is just like link to your book in your email signature, link to it on your blog, on your social media, like anywhere you have a digital presence. If you're presenting at a conference, put your book in your author profile. It's amazing how many authors don't do that. And that really does make a difference.
Yeah, I would just like to underline what you said about just share it with family and friends.
Yeah.
Like tell people you have a book. I've talked to so many authors who are so concerned with, I mean, maybe it's status or prestige, or they're letting their dreams get in the way of simple steps.
Thanks for joining us once again.
Please send your questions to podcast@microcosmpublishing.com so we can answer them on future episodes.
And please give us 5 stars on iTunes and everywhere else that podcasts are reviewed.
You can find us on the internet at microcosm.pub,
on Twitter at microcosm,
on Facebook at Microcosm Publishing,
on Instagram at microcosm_pub,
and here in Portland, Oregon on North Williams Avenue.
Thank you so much.
Have a wonderful week.